Hi everybody, I'm Alyce-Kay Ruckelshaus from Threshold of Hineni, and I want to introduce you to my brother, Russ Hanish. He is a very, very cool dude. You guys are gonna really enjoy this time talking to him and everything. He has a lot to share about because he's very talented, very smart, and very energetic. I can't believe how much he does. So anyway, so Russ and I have known each other for 57 years? 57 years. We're like getting up there. I don't know, maybe he didn't want me to say his age, but
hey, you're fine.
He's my little brother. So anyway, Russ, let's go ahead and get started because we've got a lot to talk about. Why don't you tell me first about the labs that you used to work at so we can get a little bit of your background.
Okay, yeah. When I was a kid, my dream was always to work in big science. And so my goal was to get a job out at Lawrence Livermore Laboratory. And after I graduated from college, I went out there and got a job and got to work on lasers. So I got to work on this big laser program that we built chains of lasers. There were multiple lasers. And these lasers would shoot through each other to amplify the light. And then we would use the light to purify metals.
Oh, wow, cool.
And so we could actually ionize the metals, which means give them an electric charge, and then collect that very, very particular isotope of a metal with magnets. And so I got to work on building the big copper vapor lasers. I got to work on what was called vapor rate monitoring. And I got to work in the plutonium containment facility.
Very cool, very cool.
Plutonium's a really interesting material. It's a metal,
and
when you hold it in your gloved hand, you never touch it without a glove, but when you hold it in your gloved hand, you can feel its warmth.
Oh, wow.
It's really warm of its own accord.
So if you held it in your hands without gloves, what, would it burn you?
No, you would get radiation poisoning.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, it's radioactive.
Wow.
So yeah, you never actually get to interact with plutonium directly. It's always in a glove box or something like that, and then you hold it in your gloves while you're working with it.
That's cool. I bet there's not too many people in the world who have gotten to hold plutonium.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool. Now, was that dangerous to work with all the lasers and everything?
Well, there was some danger involved. As a matter of fact, I almost got killed one time.
I remember.
Yeah, I was working on a laser. It was my first day in a new lab, the vapor rate monitor lab. And my supervisor was teaching me how to clean laser windows. And so you would take a pair of hemostats and you would put a little wipe in them and you would reach over the laser and swipe the window on the laser while it was running. And I had pointed to the high voltage lead and I said, well, isn't that dangerous? Shouldn't you turn that off before you do that? And she explained that, well, if you turn it off, you won't be able to see the change in power. So then she gave me my own laser to work on and she went off to get some donuts and coffee. So I'm sitting there and these lasers are down under the floor. So you sit on the edge of a pit and lean in over them. And so your head is leaning against a metal enclosure as you're trying to peek in there and see it. And I go in to swipe and I got this feeling like I was falling asleep.
Ooh.
And it turns out that I had touched the high voltage lead and 180 volts at 36.4 amps went from my elbow and came out my forehead.
Didn't you have like burn marks or something on your forehead?
I did. I had a crater in my forehead.
Oh, a crater. Oh my goodness.
Crater. Yeah, it literally blew out. It was so much current.
So you just felt like you were falling asleep while that was happening?
Yeah, it just felt like, you know, when you're like really tired and you're trying to stay awake and you keep dozing off, it felt like that.
Wow. And so did she come back and find you being electrocuted or
no,
what?
No, she had left me with another guy it was his first day as well. And so he was there. He couldn't do anything because if he had touched me, he would have been electrocuted too.
Right.
So, you know, what he was able to do was take care of me after I broke the circuit. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's, I don't know if this is true or if this is just like my muddled memory, but didn't they want you to stay in the hospital and you didn't because you had a band that you had hired or something?
No, I was in the band.
Oh, you were in the band.
Yes, I was in the band, and the show must go on.
Yeah.
So I talked the doctor into letting me out of the hospital about a day early.
That's
I
my
just
brother.
stayed overnight, and I had about 200 people scheduled to come over, and we were doing a jam thing, and we ended up. It was one of the best jams we ever had. We had neighbors come over with harmonicas and saxophones, and
Well, you had all that extra juice that had gone through.
yeah. And so we had a great jam.
That's
but
awesome.
A lot of people didn't show up because they thought I was in the hospital.
Okay. And I need to put a little disclaimer. You guys do not attempt to do this at home.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so then didn't you also work at Sandia Labs?
I did, yeah. After about 5 years, we won the Cold War. And so peace broke out on the planet Earth, and we didn't need to do nuclear weapons design anymore. So what I did, they laid me off, and I got a job across the street at Sandia National Laboratories. And there I did chemistry research for almost 15 years.
Okay.
So I did 5 years at Lawrence, and then about almost 15 years at Sandia.
And I remember you drinking some water that had been, you had made it potable or whatever the word is. It had been nuclear waste or something?
No, it was chemical waste.
It was chemical waste. Okay, so tell about that.
Right. So I worked on a project called Supercritical water oxidation. And what we did there is we could take a stream of hazardous waste. It was primarily, the idea was to destroy explosives and pyrotechnics, because you can't just burn those in a pile. They will explode. So we needed a way to destroy them without burning them. And so we were developing this supercritical water oxidation technology where we could superheat water and pressurize it. And it goes into a new state called supercritical. It's a state that's more energetic than gas and water. So it has some gas and liquid. So it has some properties of gas. It has some properties of liquid. It will take the shape of the bottom of its container, but the molecules aren't bound to each other like they are in water.
Ooh, wow.
So it's this really neat state. And if you introduce oxygen, then things will literally burn in there. One of the other scientists that worked in the same project as us, he studied what are called hydrothermal flames.
Ooh, what's that?
And they are literally flames underwater.
Oh, cool.
Yes, and so if we had too much oxygen, if we introduced too much feed, then we could literally get flames going. And flames under the water weren't a good thing in this process because they would damage material. They would damage the machine.
Okay.
So the idea was to keep the process at the level just below where the flames form.
Okay, very cool, very cool.
So with that process, we were able to destroy pyrotechnics for, like, fireworks and stuff like that, specifically army flares. We were able to destroy explosives, and we mixed those into a sludge and then introduced them. And what you get out was this perfectly clear water and a lot of CO2 gas, and this tiny itsy bitsy little pellet of salt.
Oh.
And that was the waste, was the little salt.
So that you don't want to eat.
Yeah, like a 55-gallon drum would produce a little, like, 1 gram jar of salt.
That's amazing.
And it's not table salt we're talking about. These are just chemical salt.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I remember at a family day, you drinking some of the water.
Yeah. So now eventually we developed that process to where we built a reactor that we could put on the back of a truck. And we could drive that around the country, and we developed a process for destroying chemical munitions.
Wow.
So it turns out that there are little chemical munition depots all over the US from World War I, World War II.
Okay.
And a lot of them have been forgotten. For instance, they discovered one in the backyard of the South Korean ambassador's house in Washington, D.C.
Oh my.
And these things are, 50 years old when you're discovering them, so you don't want to move this mustard gas bomb around. So we developed a process where we could drive the reactor to the site, and then one person in a suit could take that munition, put an explosive shaped charge around it, and put it inside our reactor. And then from outside the reactor, we could set off the explosive. It would split the explosive open, and then we could it would split the munition open, and then we could use the supercritical water oxidation process to destroy all the mustard gas or sarin or VX that was inside that bomb line.
Wow, that is so cool. Now, while you were at Sandia, I think it was while you were at Sandia, you kind of on the side, you were developing a project of your own. You want to tell about that?
That's right. I was developing something called the periodic table of dimensions. So the periodic table of dimensions is this picture I have right behind me here.
And that model over there, right?
That's right. Yes, the 3D model over there, right there.
Okay.
And that is an old version that I had to make a compromise to try and show 4 dimensions in 3 directions in space. So we've got 3 directions in space: forward, back, left, right, up, down. And a 4-dimensional thing needs 1 more direction, which we just don't have in space.
Right.
So for this version up here, I made a compromise and assigned electric charge to be a certain dimensionality, which means that it took up a certain proportion of mass, space, and time. That's what it was composed of.
Very good.
So I worked on this version from, I first discovered the organization of these measurements in 1997.
Okay.
And built on the idea until about 2003, 2004. I just built on the idea, trying to come up with, well, what does this look like? What can I do with this? From 2004 to 2007, I worked on it and wrote a paper for submission to the American Journal of Physics, worked on developing it, and they did not like my compromise.
Okay.
So the paper was rejected. And what I've done now is I'm working on a 4-dimensional version, so I don't have to deal with that compromise.
Okay.
So
how do you do 4 dimensions though?
Right. So what I did is I split it up into planes, space-time planes. And this is a very small version of it right here.
Okay.
So the picture you see on the wall back there behind me in black and white is the yellow planes in the middle of this picture.
Okay.
The electric charge dimensions, any dimension that has to do with electric charge, is in one of these other planes out here. And this, every single box that you see writing in is an element, which is a dimension that we measure. And I've been able to narrow down, I did a survey of probably 15 physics resources, with every measurement I could find in them. I found, at one point, I had found over 1,600 measurements.
Oh my goodness.
So now one of those sources was a web resource. And when the person who was in charge of that web resource retired, that source disappeared.
Oh no.
So now I'm down to, and he had 700 dimensions in there that I was using. So now my survey is down to 908 dimensions.
Okay.
That's still a pretty impressive survey.
Yeah, that's still a lot.
Yeah. And so that reduces to 105 dimensions.
Okay.
So there are only 105 things that we actually measure, and there's just a whole bunch of different ways of looking at those things.
So how do people use this? How would it be used?
So it's primarily a teaching tool. So we can help students understand the organization between the elements, between the dimensions. It is used for something called dimensional analysis, is its primary professional use. So engineers do this process called the dimensional analysis, where they can catalog all the different kinds of properties that we need to measure for something to happen. For instance, let's use a row of falling dominoes. So you
Okay.
know how we set up dominoes and you push the end
Make a
one and
tree.
they all fall?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So there are certain things that we would measure if we wanted to know how fast that row of dominoes was going to fall. We would need to measure how tall they are, how thick they are, how far apart they are, the acceleration of gravity, and if you want to get really technical about it, air resistance.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. Now, some people might think that, oh, well, you need to know how much they weigh too. But that actually has nothing to do with it. It doesn't matter how much something weighs, everything falls at the same rate on Earth. So that ends up having nothing to do with it. So then we can take those dimensions and we can put them into what's called a matrix. And from that matrix, we can develop dimensional models so that I can model something on a much smaller scale. So it becomes economically feasible to model things like bridges and barges towing boats. And one of the authors that I have learned most of this stuff from, Thomas Surtees, he wrote a 790-page book on this.
Wow.
And he goes through the wavefront of a nuclear blast, modeling the wavefront of a nuclear blast, modeling the drum head on a kettle drum and what it's like when you hit it and what tones it makes.
Okay.
Yeah, so
That's
just
neat.
really interesting stuff. And so dimensional analysis allows us to build scale models because not everything scales up in what we call a linear fashion. Some things might scale up by the square or something. So we have to know what things scale by what factors, and that's what dimensional analysis can do for us.
That's really cool. Now you mentioned, oh, go ahead.
Okay, so now in the classroom, what we can use this for is we can use this for doing equations. So it turns out that if I add let me see if I can get this close enough. I'm going to try a different version. So this is the version that I've had made for
there we go.
So now we can read some of these.
Yeah.
So it turns out that if we add these coordinates together, we can do physics equations. For instance, distance equals rate times time. The rate is a velocity. So if I take velocity, linear velocity, and I add that to time, then I will get distance. Let's try that. So velocity is -1, 1, 0, 0. And we are going to add 1, 0, 0, 0 to that. So each component separated by a comma only gets added to the other component in that position. So we add 1 plus -1, we get 0. 0 plus 1, we get 1. And then 0 plus 0 and 0 plus 0, we get 2 zeros. And we get 0, 1, 0, 0.
Cool.
So distance equals rate times time.
Yeah. Oh, that's very good.
And it extends throughout the entire table. You can do electrical calculations this way, and dynamics, and for instance, Newton's second law of motion, F equals ma. So here we've got mass is up here. It's this.
Right.
Let's see if I can get it to focus. It's that component right there with 0, 0, 1, 0.
Okay.
And acceleration is right here, -2, 1, 0, 0. So if F equals ma, then when we add m and a together, we should get F. Okay, -2, 1, 0, 0 plus 0, 0, 1, 0. Can you do that, Alice?
Oh, no, I can't remember what the first one was. You go ahead and do it. You go ahead and do it.
-2, 1, 0, 0 plus 0, 0, 1, 0 will give us -2, 1, 1, 0.
Okay.
So let's go find -2, 1, 1, 0, 0. There we go. -2.
1, 0, 0.
I gotta get it.
So angular.
-2, 1,
momentum.
1, 0, 0. Force.
Oh, no, force up there. Okay, force.
Yep.
Cool. Very good.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, so now you mentioned, using this for students and everything. How are you doing this? What are you doing with students?
Well, I am a STEM tutor.
What's
So,
STEM?
STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Okay, so important stuff now.
Yes, and I've been tutoring students for 14 years since I took an early retirement from the labs to start developing my periodic table of dimensions. So over the years, I've been tutoring all kinds of math. That's the most frequently asked for help is math. I've gotten to tutor quite a bit of physics and chemistry as well.
Very good.
Yeah.
And what is your company called?
My company is STEM Academics,
okay.
And I also have a second company, Physics Phun Tutoring.
Okay, and can we include that information down in the description box?
Absolutely.
Okay, are you still taking more students? Or are you full?
Yes.
Okay.
I have 2 former students working with me.
Okay. So you have extra tutors. Okay.
Yes. So both of these tutors are people that I have trained personally through high school, into college, and they've come back to work with me now.
Okay.
One of them her name is Charisma. And Charisma works with K through 7 students, and the kids just love the heck out of her. She is just perfect with kids. She plays games with them and gets them to learn by playing games. They beg for her to come back. We've got 3rd graders who don't want her to stop at an hour.
Oh.
Yeah, so
That's
yeah,
so sweet. So kids who want to do math for more than an hour.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's really cool.
And that is really the vision of my business, is to make education fun.
Really fun, yeah.
When something's fun, people want to do it. They don't forget to do it. They don't resist doing it. They want to do it.
And they remember it more, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Because they're interested in it.
So what ages does your company tutor?
Now with Charisma, we tutor from kindergarten all the way through college.
Okay, great.
So yeah, I've tutored quite a few college students. I actually got started on remote tutoring by having some of my students go off to college, and they needed help in college, and so they would call me up. And this was 7, 8 years ago now.
Wow.
So we started on Skype and tried Skype, and I found that Skype just eats up bandwidth. So then we were on Uvu for a while, and Microsoft bought Uvu and trashed it. And so now I use Zoom, and it's just like the most amazing platform.
It is really good.
And I've gotten pretty good at Zoom. So then COVID came along, and I was already set and prepared. And so that really helped boost the business.
That's great. So if you're doing it on Zoom, you could teach anybody in the world, right?
That's correct, yeah.
That's really cool.
I have worked with other educators in the UK.
Okay.
And I actually have a mentor who is in India.
Wow. Wow. That's very good. Very good. Okay. And they can contact you if they're interested. Do you have like a newsletter or something that they can subscribe to?
Yes, we have a monthly newsletter. And right now we are going through a series of articles on women in STEM, encouraging girls to get into STEM careers.
Very good. So tell me about the girl that's featured right now.
So the girl that's featured in our latest issue is Savannah Howard. She was one of my first students, and I tutored her through sophomore in high school all the way through into college. Worked with her on all of her math classes in high school and AP physics. Okay. So she has now gotten her master's in neuropsychology and is working in a company called Neurophotometrics, where they build a device where they can actually implant fiber optics into mice brains. And I believe they also do monkeys.
Wow.
And as the mice run around doing their daily activities, they can measure dopamine levels and other chemical levels in the brain as the mouse just goes about its daily business, and then also when it does perform certain things that they're trying to get it to perform.
So they're finding out how happy it is with the dopamine?
Well, they're measuring, they're trying to determine, right now they're at this point where they're trying to figure out what these things mean.
Okay.
do certain levels mean that it's happy versus mean that it's hurting or that it's anxious, etc. And so that's what the studies are right now. Now, they sell these things to other scientists. And so the other scientists are doing all kinds of things, very innovative things. So who knows what all these other people are doing.
Okay.
Matter of fact, yesterday I got a letter from a new mom who's been working with me for about 3 weeks now. And she got the newsletter. And it turns out that she is also a woman in STEM and uses this neurophotometrics equipment.
Oh, that's so cool.
That Savannah designed.
That's so cool. Now, the company that Savannah's with, it's all women, right?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
Yeah, yeah. I thought that was very cool, too.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
And I've had a few other women, dozens of other girls get into STEM careers that I've helped, and we're trying to do a series on them. So we've done Ariana Torres, who works as a security analyst for Apple. And we have done, who was the first one? I'm drawing a blank.
That's okay. If you remember her, you can bring her back.
Yeah, I'll remember her in a second.
Yeah.
And in our next issue, we've got Taylor Lindquist, who has gotten her master's in veterinary science.
Right. And I need to brag just a little bit on my brother here. When he starts teaching somebody, the family loves him. They fall in love with him. Every kid in that family ends up coming through. The kids that they babysit end up being his students and everything else. So he's very popular with this. So he's a good tutor. He's very good at teaching these things and stuff. What is your dream for Physics for Fun?
So Physics for Fun, first off, it's a really tough name to tell people because it is spelled the word physics, and then I've used PHs for the Fs in for and fun. So it's physics, PHORPHUN.
Right.
And try giving that website to somebody or that email address to somebody. It's just a pain. I always pictured it would look great on a shingle in front of a business.
Right.
That'd be a great sign for people to drive by and see. So over the last year, I've gone through a big project of rebranding my business. And in that time, what I've decided I'm actually going to do is I'm going to keep both businesses.
Okay.
And so STEM academics will become the actual tutoring arm for the time being. And I'm going to work on building STEM academics as a college prep tutoring service, continuing to do all the work that we've done over the last 14 years. Physics for Fun, I'm going to try and develop into a franchise chain of tutoring centers that are based on the idea of a hands-on science museum like the Exploratorium. So the idea is that each franchise will have its own theme. And the first theme that I want to explore is the old Greek elements: earth, air, water, and fire. So the tutoring center will have four, what do they call them? Four anchor hands-on experiments that are huge. And then it will have a whole bunch of other little hands-on experiments that you can run around and do in between doing the big ones. So the earth anchor experiment will be a climbing wall.
Okay.
So you can learn about simple machines, pulleys, and the belaying and gravity if you fall.
I was going to say, hopefully not gravity.
Well, we're going to pad the floor, don't you worry. It's actually a pretty fun fall. The air anchor will be a vertical wind tunnel, so you can skydive.
Oh, so cool.
Indoors. The water anchor will be an indoor wave pool. So you can surf and body surf and boogie board indoors. And fire will be a 5-star gourmet restaurant.
Yeah.
It will also, during the day, will be a hub spot for the kids. like Arnold's from the old happy days.
Right. A great place to hang out. That sounds so fantastic. I'm really excited about that, and I can't wait to see this developing. That's really cool. So how can people keep up with you so that they know how this is coming along and when you're ready to open and everything?
That they can visit our website, www.physicsforfun.com.
Okay, and we'll have that in the description box.
Way, or you can spell it the normal way, F-O-R-F-U-N.
Oh, good.
Both domains.
We'll have it so that you can actually click on the link below.
Yes, excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are also in the process of building a new website at stem-academics.com.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Well, Russ, is there anything that you want to close with?
I think I'm good.
Okay.
This was fun.
It was fun. It was fun. And y'all, I know that his, what do you call it? Your model thing. That
the periodic table.
Periodic table. Thank you. It looks really complicated, and it is. Okay. But he's explained it to me sometimes with that old model back there. And I've actually understood it at the moment that he's explaining it. So, and I think he's probably fine-tuned it a lot since then, because you're teaching it to high schoolers and stuff. So
right,
yeah. So it's a lot more understandable than it seems when you're just trying to explain it here. But yeah, it's really very, very cool. It's very interesting.
And I do have a paper in the works right now
for
resubmission to the American Journal of Physics.
Okay.
So we can get this out into physics classrooms and hopefully into physics textbooks.
Awesome. Awesome. That's really good. That's really good. Okay, everybody. So be sure to like, comment. If you have any questions for Russ, put those in the comments below. And subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and share this with a friend who you think might be interested. And if you are interested in his tutoring service or anything, be sure to contact him. If you'd like to be on his newsletter list, that can go out to anybody, right?
That is correct. Yep.
Yeah. So that can go out to, yeah, it's free. It's a free newsletter, and it's really cool. It's short and sweet and very, very interesting. So anyway.
And let me mention something else about the website.
Okay.
We also have free cheat sheets for math and science courses.
Yeah.
And we have one of the largest collections of released AP exams for math and science AP classes.
Okay.
And it's all free. Everything there is free.
So definitely check out his website, y'all. There's some good stuff there, and pass that on to other people, pass his website on to other people so that they're checking it out too. And that's really exciting. All right. We love you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.